Arsenal family, what's up? Man, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for being here. Man, how about that worship music today? It was an incredible morning, and we're just continuing today to talk in our series, the I Am series. For those of you who are new here, who have just been checking us out maybe the last couple weeks, and maybe you've heard me in announcements, so you're like, this guy says he's a pastor, but he never preaches. I promise every once in a while I talk, but the last 3 weeks, Rob gave me some time off, and he took on that time of like studying and preparing. And so, man, it's incredible to be able to have a team here that can not just be one voice speaking, but it's a multitude of voices that are speaking the same message, maybe in a different way. And so thank you to Rob. Thank you to the team for just giving me some time to catch my breath during this time of COVID. It's been fun. And there's been a lot of creative things we've had to do. And so I just want to say thank you to them publicly on here. So in the chat, thank Rob. He's an incredible speaker. I love that he is on our team and that we get to do this together. So thank him. Let him know how much you love him. And if you like him more than me, I get it. But today you're stuck with me. So here we go. Week 3 in our I Am series. We are continuing. This series is based off of the statements that Jesus makes where he says, I am, and he says multiple different things. And so we're going through those statements. The last 2 weeks, Rob has done, I am the bread of life, and I am the light of the world. This week, when we were talking through the plan of everything, this week, the week that I got is, I am the gate. I mean, he got bread of life and light of the world. I got, I am the gate. Did you guys even know Jesus said this? In some translations, he says, I am the door. Some of you guys are like, oh, that, I didn't know gate, but I knew the door. But I am the gate is our statement today that Jesus made. And we're going to jump into this, and I think we're going to have some fun with it. And man, I've done a ton of studying because it was one of those that it's almost tough to kind of figure out what Jesus was trying to say. But I'm confident that the Spirit has just given me some revelation on this that I get to just share with you. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, if you're like, Chad, no, then I get it. Let's have that conversation. That's what the Arsenal is about. Let's ask questions. Let's grow in those questions. And let's just continue to do this together. But I'm pretty confident that the Spirit has just spoken and given me some revelation on this. So here we go. We're going to try to unpack that. But first, we're gonna talk about a little bit about sheep. It'll make sense in a few minutes. Just stick around. All right, here we go. So have you ever been around sheep? Like, have you ever been around them? Like, they're an interesting creature. Their fur is kind of soft. Not when it's on them though, because they're usually dirty. But they kind of look funny. And if you've ever seen one where it's been sheared and it doesn't have its hair, like they look really funny. So I don't know, when I had a lamb when I was like 8 years old. Well, I didn't have one. I worked with one. I don't know. His name was Methuselah. Have you ever heard that name, Methuselah? Methuselah in the Bible is actually the oldest recorded person, the person who lived the longest. His name was Methuselah, and this lamb's name was Methuselah. If you grew up in church, like, You'll remember the Easter like plays that churches would put on. And our church was no different growing up. We had these huge Easter plays that we would put on. People from the community would come from all over to come watch these plays. And in this particular year, there was a dad and his 2 sons were the main subject of this play. Well, Jesus was the main subject, but we were following the dad and his 2 sons. And I was the youngest son. And I had this lamb named Methuselah. And in the play, the lamb was my friend, was my favorite lamb. And I'd raised it from birth, and I loved this lamb. It was my best friend. And in the play, I tried, I know some of you are like, we've got to see this. I tried to find video, but I'm too old for like online stuff. There was a solo that I had that I sang when I was 8 years old. I sang to this lamb, and I sang about like, I don't want you to go. You're my friend. I don't want you to go, because here's the sad part. Even though his name was Methuselah, person who lived the longest in the Bible, he was actually supposed to be our family's sacrificial lamb for the year, where we would have to go and take him and sacrifice him to atone for our sins. And this was leading up to maybe he'll be saved by Jesus, right? So I had this sacrificial lamb who was named Methuselah as a cruel joke because that was obviously not his future. And I remember doing everything I could in the play to change the decision where my lamb would be saved. But it wasn't up to me what would happen. And I remember after this play was over, I cried my eyes out for my lamb. I missed Methuselah. And in fact, we were supposed to go see Methuselah because they'd come pick him up and take him to the farm or wherever he lived when he wasn't in the play. But we were supposed to go see him, and my parents never took me. And I think what happened is Methuselah didn't make it to be the longest living lamb in the city of Oklahoma City. And I never got to see him again. So I cried and I cried and I cried. So today we're gonna talk about protecting sheep. And unlike me, the ending of this is more successful than the one that I had with Methuselah. R.I.P. All right, so Jesus makes this statement. He says, I am the gate. And he says this statement in John chapter 10, but before we go there, I want to look back a chapter because I want to put this in context and see exactly what had transpired with Jesus before he makes this statement. So when we go look at chapter before, it kind of tells us who he's talking to and why he's saying these things. So we're going to hop back up to chapter 9, and I'm going to read through some of this, but here, just to give you an idea, here's what happens. It says that Jesus had seen this man who was blind, and he decided he was going to heal him. And this is a story most of you have heard. He spits into the dirt, and he makes some mud, and he puts it on the man's eyes, right? And he tells the man, okay, now go wash your face, and wash the mud off your face, and you'll be healed. The man does it, and he's healed. He can see. And Jesus leaves him, and the man goes in the city, and people are freaking out. They're like, isn't this the guy who used to be blind? No, that can't be him because he's blind, but this guy's not blind. And there's this whole thing, and they decide, he's like, yeah, I got healed. This guy, Jesus, he healed me. And they're like, we're taking you to the Pharisees. The Pharisees, the religious leaders of the day. So they take him, and they take him to the Pharisees, and they're like, hey, this is what happens. Here's what happens. I'm going to jump into John 9, verse 13. I'm just going to read through this really quickly. But it says this, they marched the man to the Pharisees. This day when Jesus made the paste and healed his blindness was the Sabbath. The Pharisees grilled him again on how he'd come to see. He said, he put clay paste on my eyes, I washed, and now I see. Some of the Pharisees said, obviously, this man can't be from God. He doesn't keep the Sabbath. Others countered, Others countered, how can a bad man do miraculous, God-revealing things like this? There was a split in their ranks. Verse 17 says they came back at the blind man. You're the expert. He opened your eyes. What do you say about him? And he said, he's a prophet. You know, this guy's probably like, I don't know. The dude healed me. That's all I got for you. Like, stop asking me. But he says that he's a prophet, and the Jews didn't believe it. Didn't believe the man was blind to begin with, so they called the parents of the man, now bright-eyed with sight. They asked them, the parents, is this your son, the one you say was born blind? So how is it that he now sees? I love the parents' response here. His parents said, we know he's our son, and we know he was born blind. But we don't know how he came to see, haven't a clue about who opened his eyes. In fact, why don't you ask him? He's a grown man and can speak for himself. They called the man back. The Pharisees called him back for a second time. The man who had been blind, and told him, give credit to God. We know this man is an imposter, talking about Jesus. He replied, I know nothing about the one or this one way or the other. But I know one thing for sure. I was blind and now I see. I've told you over and over and over. You haven't listened. Why do you want to hear it again? Are you so eager to become his disciples?" And when the Pharisees heard this, it says, with that they jumped all over him. "You might be a disciple of that man, but we're disciples of Moses. We know for sure that God spoke to Moses, but we have no idea where this man even comes from." The man replied, "This is amazing." I can see this. He's like, this is crazy. This is amazing. You claim to know nothing about him, but the fact is he opened my eyes. It's well known that God isn't at the beck and call of sinners, but listens carefully to anyone who lives in reverence and does his will. That someone opened the eyes of a man born blind has never been heard of, ever. If this man didn't come from God, he wouldn't be able to do anything. He makes a valid point, right? They said, "You're nothing but dirt. How dare you take that tone with us?" Then they threw him out in the street. They're calling him dirt. In some other translations, it says, you were born in utter sin. Because he was born blind, they believe that he was born in sin. They're saying, what do you know? You were born in sin. How could you teach us, the Pharisees, the religious elite, those that know the law? What do you know? Jesus heard that they had thrown him out and went and found him. And Jesus asked him, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man said, "Point him out to me, sir, so that I can believe in him." Jesus said, "You're looking right at him. Don't you recognize my voice?" "Master, I believe you," the man said, and worshiped him. Jesus then said, "I came into the world to bring everything into the clear light of day, making all the distinctions clear so that those who have never seen will see, and those who have made a great pretense of seeing will be exposed as blind." Some Pharisees overheard Jesus saying this, and they said, "Does that mean you're calling us blind?" Jesus said, "If you were really blind, you would be blameless. But since you claim to see everything so well, you're accountable for every fault and failure." The juxtaposition of that last statement is just wild to me. The Pharisees had just told a man that had been born blind, "You are nothing but dirt. You were born in utter sin." Jesus wasn't going to stand for this though, right? And he says to the Pharisees, if you were really blind, you'd be blameless, without sin and guilt. But because you claim to see, you have made yourselves accountable for fault and failure. Then, after all this, Jesus dives into this story, this parable, this account that he says these words. And I felt like we need to know what had just happened before Jesus dives into it. But here's what Jesus says. Let me set this before you as plainly as I can. This is in John 10, verse 1. If a person climbs over or through the fence of a sheep pen, or in some translations, a sheepfold, instead of going through the gate, you know he's up to no good. A sheep rustler, a sheep thief. The shepherd walks right up to the gate. The gatekeeper opens the gate to him, and the sheep recognizes his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he gets them all out, he leads them and they follow because they're familiar with the voice. Or with his voice. They won't follow a stranger's voice, but will scatter because they aren't used to the sound of it. Jesus told this simple story, but it says, but they had no idea what he was talking about. So he tried again. Jesus says, I'll be explicit then. I am the gate for the sheep. All those others are up to no good, sheep stealers, every one of them. But the sheep didn't listen to them. I am the gate. Anyone who goes through me will be cared for, will freely go in and out and find pasture. A thief is only there to steal and kill and destroy. I came so that they can have real and eternal life, more and better life than they've ever dreamed of. Jesus said it pretty plainly, right? Like we all understand what he just said. I get it. Jesus is the gate. The shepherd, Jesus, walks right up to the gate, Jesus, And the gatekeeper opens the gate, Jesus, and then the shepherd, Jesus, calls his sheep and leads them out, right? All makes sense. Jesus is the shepherd, he's the gate. I mean, he's everything. Yeah. All right, maybe it's not so clear. So let me try to unpack this. I think Jesus realized this is not as clear, and so he tried to say again that I am the gate. And later in this passage, just a few scriptures later, he says, I am the good shepherd. And we're going to talk about the good shepherd a little later in the passage next week, but today I'm going to focus on I am the gate as our phrase. There's a few things that he talks about in this passage that I want to just kind of outline. One is the sheep pen, or the sheepfold is what it's known as. It's a place where sheep are led into to keep them safe or away from predators, usually like at night. It looks something like this. I'll show you a picture of it. You see, it's this wall that is usually like built of stone and maybe some wood. It's built up, and from all the research I did, it's built up to like 4 to 6 feet, so the sheep can't get out of it. And it's built, and there's a gate at the front of it. There's one gate, one way in, one way out. Shepherds would walk their sheep up to the sheepfold, or the sheep pen, and they would let them in, and they would close the gate behind them. And a lot of times this is where the shepherds could go sleep somewhere, and there's a gatekeeper that watches over the gate that only allows the shepherd to come get his sheep. So in this story, we see that Jesus he's talking about a sheepfold. There's sheep within the sheepfold. There's a gatekeeper, and when the shepherd walks up to the gatekeeper opens the gate because he recognizes the shepherd, and the shepherd calls his sheep, and because the sheep know the shepherd's voice, the sheep come out to the shepherd, and then he leads them out. Remember, right before this story, the Pharisees are questioning if Jesus is even of God, if he's a good guy or not. Why? Why were they so, what was their reasoning for thinking he wasn't a man of God? It was because he'd healed this man on the Sabbath, which is considered working on the Sabbath, and the Sabbath is supposed to be a day of rest where Jesus cannot heal somebody because when he heals them, he is working. And so the Pharisees are like, no. Anyone who's of God would have known that by law on the Sabbath, we can't be healing people. He broke the law, they think. And really the Sabbath law wasn't this you couldn't work it. That was an extra thing that Pharisees had begun to add. Not the Sabbath was a law. The Sabbath was something they practiced, but this breaking of rules of Jesus had already gotten in trouble with his disciples for them grabbing wheat, picking wheat so that they could eat it. They'd already gotten into it with the Pharisees about this. And so Jesus isn't new to this type of conversation. But they're mad because he healed a man on the Sabbath. Let's break down a few of the things that are in this story, the parts of this story. 1, the sheep pen or the sheepfold. It's that wall that's around the sheep, right? 2, there's a gate. It's the way in and out of a sheep pen. 3, he talks about sheep rustlers, right? People that don't use the gate, but they come over the wall. They come in to harm the sheep or to steal the sheep. And then there's the shepherd. The shepherd, it says, walks right up to the gate, and the gatekeeper knows him, and he gets his sheep because the sheep know his voice. The gatekeeper, it's a person that protects the gate and has a certain standard that you must meet in order to allow you to open the gate, right? There's a certain thing that you must meet in order for the gate to be open for you. Not just anybody can walk up to the gate. If that was the case, and the people that are jumping over the wall, they would just walk up to the gate, but they can't because there's a standard. The gatekeeper must know you. You must meet the standard to walk to or through the gate. And then there's the sheep. And it says that the sheep know their shepherd's voice. He says, let me set this before you as plainly as I can. If a person climbs over or through the fence of a sheep pen or fold instead of going through the gate, you know he's no good, a sheep rustler. The shepherd walks right up to the gate. The gatekeeper opens the gate to him, and the sheep recognize his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he gets them all out, he leads them, and they follow because they are familiar with his voice. They won't follow a stranger's voice, but will scatter because They aren't used to the sound of it. Here's how I interpret this passage as I read through it in the context of Jesus and Jesus' day and these Pharisees and what is happening. Here's what I see. The sheep are the Israelites. We can see this throughout Scripture. Sheep are referred to. The Israelites are the lost sheep of Israel that Jesus in Matthew refers to as going to get. So the sheep are the Israelites. The sheep pen or the sheepfold surrounding them and protecting them until the shepherd returns is the Mosaic law. We talk about the law a lot. It's the law that God gave the Israelites. God gave it to man because man was asking for something. Man was asking for law, and God said, here, I'll give you the law. It will protect you. It was like leading his people, the Israelites, into the sheepfold, a wall of protection that would protect them, something that they could live within those boundaries until the Messiah returns. In Galatians 3, verse 23, it says this, so until the revelation of faith for salvation was released, the law was a jailer, holding us as prisoners under lock and key until the faith which was destined to be revealed would set us free. The law becomes a gateway to lead us to the Messiah so that we would be saved by faith. But when faith comes, the law is no longer in force, since we've already entered into life. The law was like a prison holding them captive. So you have the law, that the jailer that is holding the Israelites under lock and key until, it says, the faith which was destined to be revealed would set us free. The gate. Jesus says, I am the gate. The only way to be free from the law was perfection. We see this in James 2:10, right? James 2:10 says, for the one who attempts to keep all the law of Moses, but fails in just one point, has become guilty of breaking the law in every aspect. We've said this before. If you want to be under the law, then you must keep all 613 Mosaic laws and ceremonial law, all these extra laws. You must keep all of them, because if you break one, you are found guilty. It is a pass or fail system. It's either perfection or guilty. So the only way to get released from the law is perfection. Jesus says, I am the gate. I'm the only way in and the only way out. I'm the only way to freedom from this jail or this prison of law. He's really laying this out for the Pharisees. He's telling them, no. I am who this man says I am. I am who you're looking for. But you're just too blind to see. You say you see. So because you say you see, you're stuck in your own pin. This man who is blind was found blameless and understands that I am the only way to freedom. Jesus says, I am the gate. I believe what Jesus is saying here is perfection is the only way out of the law. I am perfection. I am who the Father has sent. You are looking for the Messiah. I am He. I think we see this as He is perfection, the opening to the law. And then He is the shepherd, the Messiah that will lead us out or lead them out of the law. Jesus says, I am the gate that is swung open and calls my sheep into freedom. I think a lot of times when we read this, I feel like we're focused on the fact that Jesus is the way into the system of Christian religion. Right? We've heard this before. Oh, he's the only way. He's the only way in. And I believe that. But what Jesus is saying in this statement is not I'm the only way in, technically, to the Israelites. He's saying I'm the only way out. I'm the only way that you even got in here because we put you here for safety. But I'm the only way that you get out and experience freedom from this. This whole conversation started because religious leaders told someone, this man that Jesus had set free, that he isn't worthy to be in their clubs, so they called him dirt and they kicked him out. They said, "You were born dirt. You are not worthy." So, Jesus, being who Jesus is, perfection, finds this man and says, "You get it. You understand that it's not by your might or by anything you've done that you find freedom. But the only way that you found freedom is through me. You've walked through the gate. Do you recognize my voice?" And when the man says, "I do," he says, "You are free." What do we get when we walk through the gate? What do we get when we enter into this belief of who Jesus says he is? What do we get when we walk through the gate of Jesus? Jesus says we walk into freedom. What kind of freedom? Well, the last part of this portion of chapter 10, Jesus says that a thief is only there to steal and kill and destroy. And I've heard this statement a lot. And a lot of times we say the thief is here to steal, kill, and destroy. And when we're talking about that, we're talking about the devil, right? We're talking about Satan. We're saying that the thief is here to kill, steal, and destroy. Jesus here is saying a thief is here to kill, steal, and destroy. And he's referring to people who have come into the sheepfold through nefarious ways, jumping over the fence, jumping over the wall, and have maybe even said they are Messiah, because that had happened almost, historians say that almost 200 times people said they were the Messiah before Jesus came, but they were not. They did not know where the gate was. They were not the gate. They couldn't get people out. So what does a thief do? He steals, kills, and destroys. What are the Pharisees within this system beginning to do? They are stealing your joy. They are killing your hope. They are destroying your purpose. But Jesus says, "I came so that they can have real and eternal life, more and better life than they ever dreamed of." You see, Jesus says, while they try to steal your joy, I want you to experience my joy. While they try to kill your hope, I want you to find peace in the hope that you find in me. And while they try to destroy your purpose, I want you to walk in my purpose with me. All of this is only found in the freedom that an open gate offers us. If we choose to walk through the gate, but the only way out is through the gate, and Jesus says, he is that gate. Arsenal family, if you have questions about this, if there's anything that you want to talk about, I would love to continue this conversation. Like I said, this was one that I did a ton of studying on, and much more than I expected to. In fact, you don't know this, but when we shoot these, we usually shoot during the week. It is 3:30 on Saturday afternoon right now because I wanted a little more study time on this. Because I haven't always heard it this way. But if you've got questions, if I didn't make sense, let's talk through it. That's what the Arsenal's about. We believe that growth happens in the questions, and we want that to be a part of our culture, so ask those questions. Maybe we'll even do a follow-up this week of a Facebook and YouTube Live to talk about it if you'd like. But I love what Jesus says here, that he is the gate that leads us into freedom. I hope today you can experience that freedom, that you can experience the joy that he has for you, that you can experience the hope and the peace that's found there, and that you can truly find your purpose in the person of Jesus. Have an incredible week. We'll talk again soon. Arsenal, go love well. It's truly who we were made to be. Till next time.
Hey, thanks so much for hanging out today. Man, we had a great time putting this service together. We really hope it meant a lot to you and it spoke to you. We hope that you see Jesus in a new light. Every week, we're looking at how Jesus talks about himself, and it just reveals something new and amazing about him. And we hope that that's what you experienced today. And we love you so much. Don't forget, come hang out Wednesdays, 4 o'clock on Facebook and YouTube. The chat, we're gonna hang out. We have some fun stuff that we do. We have some serious stuff that we do. We're really just hanging out, and man, we love you guys so much, and we'll see you very soon.